With Iron Harvest, King Art Games strikes an excellent combination between familiar mechanics and campaign formats we've seen before, but still comes out looking fresh. My name is Paulo, and this is our video review. If we ask the gaming community what game they'd like to play, we'd probably get a mashup of concepts of the leading games from the best era of the particular genre, taking the best bits of everyone that we consider classics. Real-time strategy games, or RTS, had a golden age marked by launches that are still great today, with on average over 20 years of history behind them. In this context, Iron Harvest sets out to be the new leader with a format that will be familiar to veterans of this genre, and very eye-catching for new players. King Art Games was not only inspired by many classics of the genre, but also a major market study of over 15,000 fans asking them what they'd like to see in a new RTS as part of a Kickstarter project. Iron Harvest takes us to an alternative reality in 1920, after the end of the Great War, set in a diesel punk style with powerful mechs capable of destroying whole cities. There are three factions to choose from: the Republic of Polania, Rusvlet, and the Saxony Empire, each with over a dozen units. These factions have their advantages and disadvantages, so we have different forms of play. For example, Polania has cheap military units that will allow us to be more aggressive at the start of the games and quickly re-establish our army after a battle. If we play with Rusviet, we have a greater number of mechanics that are ideal for skirmishes with any enemy army, but are much more expensive. And lastly, the Saxon Empire is relatively well balanced, although tends to play more defensively. The differences between the factions and the units is a clear nod to the Command and Conquer saga. In fact, there is a very close similarity between the Rusviet mechanics and the Nod vehicles. The campaign is divided into three major chapters with a narrative arc that covers the whole story, similar to the campaign format in Warcraft 3. The story starts in Polania, where we are told the story of Anna, how she grew up to be a leader of the resistance and the reason for her opposition, to then be drawn into the following campaign. The missions are very entertaining and have a good difficulty level, with an AI that takes advantage of the moments when you're away from your base or putting your army back together, applying good pressure by attacking almost constantly, which makes them a lot of fun. A very interesting addition is that the whole campaign can be played as single player or coup, while one of the players controls the offensive and the other stays and defends the base and worries about the resources. This being an RTS, we're obviously going to have a system of resources and also a construction system. We only have two resources, iron and oil, which we get from mines and wells that are scattered around the map. We have to conquer and defend these structures so that we get a bonus every 5 seconds. The construction is pretty limited, with only 2 buildings for unit production, and then all the rest are defensive structures, as well as the fact that you can only build in a delimited zone, and not just wherever you want. With the exception of the general barracks, all the buildings, including the mines or wells we capture, can be updated and the level increased to unblock new units or get more resources. All the units can also go up a level or military rank with the experience you gain with the skirmishes or by defending the buildings. With the improved rank, we have access to special skills like higher shooting speed or a special attack by the mechanics, or a smoke screen to firing a round of explosive charges as defense. Something that is very well implemented is that all the soldiers can cover themselves behind sandbags or walls, as in company of heroes, and that helps to constantly change the way you attack or which squadron we leave to defend a specific point. all the units can change their equipment. For example, if we have a unit equipped with rifles and we kill a unit that has grenades, we can arm ourselves with those grenades and have the additional option of throwing them whenever we want. Another of the functions available is disarming the remains of the fallen mechs and getting extra resources, something that helps the immersion within the story. And with the faction we're playing with is the native mode, which makes all the units speak in their native language. Another of the things that helps immersion into something that feels like a war is that almost everything can break. The ground has a hole in it after receiving an impact from a mortar, and the buildings fall to pieces if we go through them with a mech, as long as it's one of the heavy ones. The camera, a fundamental part of any RTS, does excellent work with a good zoom that allows you to see the smallest detail, but above all in the fact that it can turn 360 degrees, something that I'm particularly grateful for, and I hope becomes the norm in all games like this. In many ways, Iron Harvest is a well-balanced game, although there are some things that need improvement, such as the soldiers' response if they are being attacked, as they frequently stay still when faced with a fuse or cannon, without taking cover or responding to enemy fire. This is a game that responds perfectly. It doesn't need a huge PC to run on. It's fun to play and also friendly, so that many players can get into the old school style of RTS games, the ones that were really tricky but with few mechanics. But you notice too much of inspiration from every system. All the time you're playing, you're thinking they borrowed this from X game. And the third mission in the campaign, where you have to transport a train, reminded me too much of a mission in Warcraft 3 where you had to do the same mission. Only instead of protecting a train, you had to protect the towering caravan. It seems almost copied from the other game. Everything reminds you of other games, the ones that inspired them, and though I don't see this as a bad thing, it shouldn't be so obvious, particularly 3 or 4 hours into the campaign, since this is a totally new game. I felt like I'd already played it before and could even predict what the plot twist would be to connect the story. It also has bugs and things that need to be improved, which will probably be fixed in the next patches. Iron Harvest is a good game and does what it does well. King Art Games have done a good job responding to the demands of players who clearly enjoy this kind of game, but with all the ideas they came up with, they could have done something really original. It has a lot of content for playing alone. A good AI both in the campaign and in the fast games, where you decide on the difficulty and the map you want to play with, as well as a reward system that is divided between the player level and the faction level, so that you're unblocking different cosmetic features like profile icons, portraits, or something that allows you to show other players your level and experience with the game. There's no doubt this is a game that I'm going to spend a lot of hours playing, both in the campaign and online games. But it's time for us fans to stop getting all the games to resemble the glories of the past, and let in new stories and new ideas to further enhance this beautiful genre. For these reasons, Iron Harvest gets a score of 7.5. Do I recommend it? Absolutely. But don't expect to find a major surprise within the genre. It does what it promises, and it has a good story. If you're an RTS fan like me,